In a tense exchange between world leaders, the conversation spirals from military aid to a demand for gratitude, exposing the fragile balance of power in global conflict. With billions in support at stake, accusations of disrespect, and a high-stakes gamble with history itself, the question remains, who truly has control when survival depends on another's generosity? But wait, what's really going on here? Is this a turning point in global diplomacy or just the surface of something far more dangerous? Stay with us as we break it all down and expose the truth behind this shocking moment. The meeting they don't want you to understand. The White House showdown you didn't see coming. February 28th, 2025. The White House. The world is on edge. Inside the Oval Office, two leaders sit across from each other, the weight of history pressing down on their shoulders. On one side, Donald Trump, back in power, is known for his short temper. On the other, Volodymyr Zelensky, still fighting a war that has dragged on for years, is desperate for continued U.S. support. The air is thick with tension. Cameras flash as reporters capture the handshake. The conversation is blunt and direct, and Trump finally speaks. If this keeps going the way it is, we're looking at World War III. Zelensky shifts in his seat, his jaw tightening. It's a statement packed with implications. Is Trump signaling an end to U.S. military aid? Is he pressuring Ukraine into negotiating with Russia? Or is this a calculated move to shake up global power dynamics? Because while the world fixates on this meeting, something much bigger is happening behind the scenes. Power is shifting, alliances are being redrawn, and what comes next could change everything. Why this changes your life? This isn't just another political showdown between world leaders. It's a ticking time bomb with real consequences for you, your family, and your future. If tensions escalate and the U.S. pulls back support for Ukraine, the consequences could be devastating. Gas prices could skyrocket, and sanctions on Russian oil could tighten, leading to price spikes similar to 2022 when gas topped $5 per gallon. The stock market could crash, sending investors into panic mode. The last time war fears intimidated markets, the S&P 500 took a nosedive. The businesses would freeze hiring, leading to instability. That comfortable 401k or retirement fund, it could be slashed overnight. Inflation will make everyday goods more expensive. This isn't just about foreign policy. It's about your financial security. In case you're in India, Nigeria, or the Global South, don't think war won't reach your country. A major conflict between superpowers disrupts the entire world economy. Food prices will soar because Ukraine and Russia supply nearly 30% of global wheat exports. Any disruption means higher prices for bread, flour, and basic goods. In addition to this, supply chains will break down. If war affects major shipping routes or industries in India, Nigeria, and other developing economies will struggle to import essential materials. Currency values will fluctuate. Market uncertainty often weakens developing economies' currencies, making imported goods even more expensive. However, if you're an American and your retirement is on the line, then this could be a financial disaster. Stock market instability means your investments could lose value. The war in Ukraine already led to a 20% market drop in 2022. If things escalate now, expect a repeat or worse than the past. The cost of living will rise as inflation spikes. Everything from groceries to healthcare will cost more. And that fixed income won't stretch as far. Additionally, government spending will shift. More money will be allocated for military aid, which means that less money will be available for Social Security, Medicare, and essential services. For millions of Americans near retirement age, this isn't just bad news, it's devastating. A conflict on the other side of the world could wipe out decades of savings overnight. What they're hiding from you. On March 1st, 2025, official channels and mainstream media presented a narrative of the February 28th meeting between the U.S. President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. The storyline was simple. Trump, the peacemaker urging diplomacy. Zelensky, the steadfast leader, requesting more military aid to defend Ukraine against ongoing Russian aggression. Headlines echoed this sentiment, portraying a diplomatic divergence but maintaining an air of mutual respect and ongoing collaboration. However, this sanitized version omits the explosive reality of what transpired behind closed doors. The official narrative is a carefully constructed facade, designed to maintain public calm and international diplomatic decorum. But beneath this veneer lies a confrontation that could have seismic implications for global politics. The mainstream portrayal suggests a minor disagreement over strategy. Trump advocated for peace talks, and Zelensky emphasized the necessity of continued military support. This depiction is not just an oversimplification, it borders on deliberate misinformation. The truth is far more unsettling, involving personal accusations, threats to withdraw support, and a potential realignment of international alliances. By feeding the public this diluted version of events, those in power aim to prevent widespread panic and maintain the illusion of stability. But this idealized story misleads people around the world, keeping them unaware of how fragile the current global political situation really is. The first clue: they screwed up. Delving deeper into the events of that day, several anomalies in the official accounts and media coverage begin to surface, hinting at the underlying tensions that were not publicly disclosed. One glaring inconsistency is President Trump's choice of words during the meeting. While official statements highlight his calls for peace, reports from inside sources reveal a more confrontational tone. At one point, Trump accused Zelensky of gambling with World War III, a phrase that starkly contrasts with the image of a calm mediator. This aggressive language suggests a deeper frustration and hints at underlying issues not addressed in public statements. Furthermore, Vice President J.D. Vance's involvement adds another layer of complexity. Known for his outspoken views, Vance reportedly chastised Zelensky for his perceived lack of gratitude toward U.S. support. This unexpected reprimand, especially in such a high-stakes setting, indicates internal disagreements within the U.S. administration regarding foreign policy and support for Ukraine. Zelensky's reaction, or lack thereof, also raises questions. Typically vocal and assertive, his subdued demeanor following the meeting contrasts sharply with his usual public persona. This uncharacteristic silence could be indicative of the severity of the confrontation and the potential repercussions discussed behind closed doors. Moreover, the abrupt cancellation of the planned joint press conference is a significant red flag. Such events are meticulously planned, and their sudden termination suggests that the discussions deviate drastically from the anticipated script. This move not only prevented immediate media scrutiny, but also limited Zelensky's ability to present his perspective, thereby controlling the narrative. These discrepancies between the official narrative and the reported events point toward a deliberate attempt to downplay the severity of the confrontation. By analyzing these clues, it becomes evident that the public is not being presented with the full picture, raising concerns about transparency and the true state of international relations. The real players. Who's pulling the strings? The war profiteers cashing in. In the shadows of global conflicts, a select group of defense contractors reap substantial profits, their fortunes swelling as tensions escalate. Companies like Lockheed Martin, Raytheon Technologies RTX, Northrop Grumman, and BAE Systems have seen remarkable financial gains amid ongoing wars. Lockheed Martin, for instance, reported defense revenues of $60.8 billion in 2023, a slight dip from the previous year, but still reflecting robust earnings. Similarly, RTX saw defense revenues of $40.7 billion in the same period. These figures underscore the lucrative nature of defense contracts during times of conflict. European defense companies have also benefited significantly. BAE Systems and Rheinmetall are projected to see unprecedented cash flows, with the global defense industry expected to reach $52 billion by 2026 due to a surge in government orders driven by geopolitical tensions. The correlation is clear. As conflicts persist, these defense giants continue to secure massive contracts, ensuring their financial growth. This dynamic raises ethical questions about the motivations behind prolonged conflicts and the entities that stand to gain the most. The elite overlords you've never heard of. Beyond the visible players in the defense industry, there exists a network of influential organizations and individuals shaping global events from behind the scenes. The World Economic Forum, WEF, for instance, is an independent international organization that engages business, political, academic, and other leaders to shape global, regional, and industry agendas. The WEF's annual meetings in Davos serve as a convergence point for these elites, where decisions influencing global policies are often made away from public scrutiny. While the WEF's mission is to improve the state of the world, Its gatherings have been criticized for perpetuating a system that benefits the wealthy and powerful, often at the expense of broader societal interests. This concentration of influence among a select few raises concerns about accountability and transparency. As these elites convene to discuss global challenges, the lack of diverse representation can lead to policies that favor their interests, further widening the gap between the powerful and the marginalized. Amid the complex web of international relations, alliances are not always as they seem. Speculations have arisen about potential covert collaborations and manipulations among global leaders. One theory suggests a clandestine understanding between President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. Trump's America First stance, characterized by a shift towards nationalism and protectionism, has led to a re-evaluation of traditional alliances and global strategies. This shift has created a geopolitical environment that could be advantageous to Russia's strategic interests, raising questions about possible tacit agreements between the two leaders. Alternatively, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky might be perceived as a pawn in a larger geopolitical game. His appeals for increased military support and integration into Western institutions could be seen as moves orchestrated by more powerful nations to counter Russian influence, potentially placing Ukraine in a precarious position. These scenarios highlight the intricate and often concealed maneuvers in global politics, where public narratives may mask underlying strategies and alliances. Understanding these dynamics is crucial for a comprehensive grasp of international relations and the forces shaping our world. Trump's dirty little secret. During his 2024 presidential campaign, Donald Trump made a bold promise to swiftly end the ongoing conflict between Ukraine and Russia. He claimed that his unique rapport with both Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Russian President Vladimir Putin positioned him to broker peace before his inauguration. However, recent events suggest a stark deviation from this pledge. On February 28, 2025, a highly publicized meeting between Trump and Zelensky in the Oval Office devolved into a contentious exchange. Trump accused Zelensky of gambling with World War III, a statement that not only shocked onlookers but also contradicted his earlier stance as a peacemaker. This incident raises critical questions about Trump's true intentions. Was his campaign promise to end the war genuine or merely a strategic facade? His abrupt shift from advocating peace to engaging in confrontational diplomacy suggests a deeper, concealed agenda. Some analysts speculate that Trump's aggressive posture may be influenced by external pressures or ulterior motives, potentially aligning with interests that benefit from prolonged instability in the region. Moreover, Trump's past admiration for authoritarian figures, including Putin, further complicates the narrative. His reluctance to hold Russia accountable for its actions in Ukraine has been a consistent theme, raising concerns about his commitment to supporting democratic allies. This pattern of behavior suggests that Trump's public declarations may not align with his private inclinations, casting doubt on the authenticity of his promises. Zelensky's desperate game. For those seasoned by life's experiences and attuned to the nuances of political maneuvering, the actions of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky warrant a discerning examination. Initially celebrated as a courageous leader standing against Russian aggression, recent developments have prompted a re-evaluation of his role on the global stage. Zelensky's extension of his presidency under martial law, effectively postponing elections indefinitely, has drawn criticism and raised alarms about democratic backsliding. The Ukrainian parliament's decision to maintain Zelensky in power during the ongoing conflict, while legally justifiable, has been perceived by some as a consolidation of power reminiscent of autocratic regimes. This move has led to accusations of Zelensky being a puppet of Western interests, particularly the United States and NATO. Critics argue that his actions align more with the strategic objectives of Western powers than with the immediate needs of the Ukrainian populace. Such perceptions are not new. Even during his 2019 campaign, Zelensky was accused of being influenced by external forces. For the astute observer, these developments suggest that Zelensky's leadership may be more complex than the binary portrayal of heroism versus villainy. His maneuvers could be interpreted as a desperate attempt to navigate a geopolitical landscape where Ukraine is a pawn in a larger game between superpowers. Recognizing these subtleties requires the wisdom to see beyond surface narratives and question the underlying motivations of global actors. The date that screams setup. The timing of the February 28, 2025, confrontation between Trump and Zelensky is laden with implications that suggest a premeditated setup. Several concurrent events on this date point toward a coordinated effort to reshape geopolitical dynamics. Notably, February 28th marked the onset of a 24-hour consumer spending boycott across the United States, dubbed the economic blackout. This protest targeted wealth and income inequality, high prices of essential goods, and the rollback of diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives by the Trump administration. Simultaneously, stock futures experienced volatility due to concerns over the tech sector and newly imposed tariffs by the Trump administration on products from Canada, Mexico, and China. Investors were also anticipating the release of the Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index, projected to show a slight decrease in inflation for January. The convergence of these events suggests a deliberate orchestration to divert public attention and manipulate economic outcomes. By staging a dramatic fallout with Zelensky on the same day as significant domestic protests and economic fluctuations, the administration may have aimed to shift the narrative and consolidate power amidst the chaos. Furthermore, the abrupt cancellation of the anticipated Ukraine-United States Mineral Resources Agreement during the Oval Office meeting raises additional suspicions. The deal, which would have granted the U.S. access to Ukraine's vast mineral wealth, was abruptly shelved following the confrontation, indicating possible ulterior motives behind the public dispute. The fallout. How this screws you over. The escalating conflict between Ukraine and Russia has sent shockwaves throughout Europe, with countries like the United Kingdom and Germany grappling with profound economic and social repercussions. The once stable landscape of European tourism and economic stability is now under threat, affecting citizens and travelers alike. In the United Kingdom, the conflict has exacerbated existing economic challenges. Inflation rates have surged, leading to increased costs of living. The energy sector, heavily reliant on imports, has seen significant price hikes, affecting both households and businesses. The manufacturing industry, a cornerstone of the UK's economy, faces supply chain disruptions, leading to production delays and increased operational costs. Germany, Europe's economic powerhouse, is not immune to these challenges. The nation's robust industrial sector depends on stable energy supplies, and the conflict has jeopardized this stability. Rising energy costs have led to increased production expenses, which are often passed on to consumers, resulting in higher prices for goods and services. The automotive industry, a key component of Germany's economy, faces significant disruptions due to supply chain issues and increased material costs. The tourism sector, a vital part of many European economies, has been severely affected. Travelers from around the world are reconsidering their European vacations due to safety concerns and increased costs. The European Travel Commission reported that higher inflation, driven by rising energy costs, is eroding disposable incomes, leading to a decline in travel demand. For UK and German citizens, the prospect of affordable vacations is diminishing. Popular tourist destinations within Europe are experiencing price surges in accommodation and services, making leisure travel less accessible. Additionally, the aviation industry faces increased fuel costs, leading to higher airfare prices, further deterring potential travelers. The economic strain is fostering social unrest. In the UK, protests have erupted over the rising cost of living, with citizens demanding government intervention to alleviate financial pressures. Germany faces political challenges as public dissatisfaction grows, potentially leading to shifts in political alliances and policies. The Global South gets crushed. The repercussions of the Ukraine-Russia conflict extend far beyond Europe, with nations in the Global South, particularly India, Nigeria, and other African countries, bearing a disproportionate share of the burden. The crisis has precipitated surges in oil prices and threatened food security, exacerbating existing vulnerabilities and undermining development efforts. The conflict has disrupted global oil supplies, leading to a sharp increase in oil prices. For oil-importing countries like India, this surge translates into higher transportation and manufacturing costs, which are subsequently passed on to consumers. The resulting inflation erodes purchasing power, disproportionately affecting low and middle-income households. In Nigeria, despite being an oil-producing nation, the benefits of high oil prices have been undermined by underinvestment and infrastructural challenges. Consequently, the anticipated fiscal boon has not materialized, limiting the government's capacity to invest in essential services and development projects. The The Global South's food security is under siege due to the conflict's impact on agricultural exports from Ukraine and Russia, both key suppliers of grains and fertilizers. Disruptions in these supplies have led to increased food prices and shortages. In Africa, this scenario has resulted in heightened food insecurity, with vulnerable populations facing the brunt of scarcity and malnutrition. The economic hardships stemming from increased oil and food prices have sparked social unrest in several countries. Protests over rising living costs and government inaction have become more frequent, challenging political stability. Governments are under pressure to implement measures to cushion their populations from these shocks, often with limited fiscal space to maneuver. The tech takeover you didn't expect. As geopolitical tensions escalate, the battlefield is increasingly shifting to the digital realm. Nations like China and Russia are investing heavily in cyber capabilities, posing significant threats to global cybersecurity. This new frontier of warfare has profound implications for individuals and societies worldwide. Cyber warfare involves state-sponsored attacks on another nation's information systems, aiming to disrupt, damage, or gain unauthorized access. China and Russia have been identified as major actors in this domain, developing sophisticated cyber tools capable of targeting critical infrastructure, financial systems, and government networks. The proliferation of cyber warfare means that everyday devices like smartphones, computers, and even household appliances connected to the internet can become targets. Personal data, financial information, and privacy are at heightened risk as cyber attacks become more frequent and sophisticated. A successful cyber attack on financial institutions could lead to significant economic disruptions, eroding trust in banking systems and causing financial losses. Moreover, attacks on critical infrastructure, such as power grids or healthcare systems, could have dire consequences for public safety and well-being. The bombshell. 3 shocking ways this ends. Way 1. Trump's selling us out. In a startling turn of events, President Donald Trump's recent actions suggest a potential capitulation to Russian interests, raising alarms about the future of global democracy and the balance of power. During a tense meeting on February 28, 2025, President Trump issued an ultimatum to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. "You either make a deal, or we are out." This statement implies a potential withdrawal of U.S. support for Ukraine if a peace agreement with Russia is not reached promptly. Such a move could leave Ukraine vulnerable to Russian aggression, effectively conceding to President Vladimir Putin's long-standing ambitions in the region. Reports indicate that President Trump is considering withdrawing U.S. troops from NATO's frontline positions in the Baltic states, a move that would significantly weaken the alliance's deterrence capabilities against Russian expansionism. This decision aligns with Putin's demands and threatens the security of Eastern European nations, potentially paving the way for further Russian incursions. By sidelining Ukraine and negotiating directly with Russia, the Trump administration risks undermining democratic principles and the sovereignty of nations. Such actions could embolden authoritarian regimes worldwide, signaling a retreat of the United States from its traditional role as a defender of democracy. The potential consequences of these actions are profound. A diminished NATO presence in Eastern Europe could destabilize the region, leading to increased Russian influence and a potential redrawing of international borders. This shift threatens not only the freedom of nations in Russia's periphery, but also the broader international order that has maintained relative stability since the end of the Cold War. Way 2. Zelensky lights the fuse. Facing dwindling international support and mounting domestic pressure, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky may consider taking drastic measures to defend his nation's sovereignty, potentially igniting a broader conflict. Isolated after a contentious meeting with President Trump, Zelensky faces limited options. Without robust U.S. support, Ukraine's ability to deter Russian aggression diminishes, potentially compelling Zelensky to consider preemptive military actions to reclaim occupied territories or disrupt Russian military capabilities. Any Ukrainian offensive against Russian forces could escalate rapidly, drawing neighboring countries into the conflict. Nations with historical ties to Ukraine or vested interests in regional stability might feel compelled to intervene, transforming a localized war into a broader regional conflagration. An expanded conflict in Eastern Europe would disrupt global markets, particularly energy supplies, leading to soaring prices and economic instability worldwide. Countries dependent on Russian energy exports would face shortages, while global supply chains could be severed, affecting industries from technology to agriculture. The human cost of such an escalation would be catastrophic. Millions could be displaced, leading to a refugee crisis that would strain the resources of neighboring countries and international aid organizations. The resulting humanitarian disaster would require a coordinated global response, challenging the capacity and will of the international community. Way 3. The elite's master plan. Amid the geopolitical turmoil, some analysts suggest that the unfolding events are part of a broader strategy by global elites to reshape the world order to their advantage. The theory posits that the conflict serves as a diversion, allowing powerful entities to implement sweeping changes without public scrutiny. While the world focuses on the Ukraine crisis, these elites could be advancing agendas that consolidate their control over global resources and governance structures. The chaos resulting from the conflict provides an opportunity to restructure economies, potentially leading to increased centralization of financial systems. This could involve the introduction of digital currencies controlled by central banks, reducing financial privacy and increasing state oversight of individual transactions. In the name of security and stability, governments might implement stricter controls over populations, curtailing freedoms and increasing surveillance. Emergency powers enacted during the crisis could become permanent, leading to an erosion of democratic institutions and civil liberties. Ultimately, the elites could emerge from the crisis with unprecedented power, having leveraged the turmoil to implement policies that favor their interests. This consolidation could lead to greater inequality and reduced agency for the average citizen, fundamentally altering the fabric of societies worldwide. This isn't just another news story. It's your future on the line. Do you see the setup? Who do you think is pulling the strings? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.